tell you categorically that if you're interested, seriously interested in publishing,
See you later. Okay, take care.
if you're seriously interested in mainstream publishing, in New York publishing, that the best writers conference to go to is Thriller-Fest in New York. And it doesn't move around, it's only in New York, and it's every year. And in July. And among the things they do, for example, for writers, is they have an entire day, or about a half a day actually, that they call Agent Fest, in which you can actually pitch and give your manuscript to agents, literary agents, New York literary agents, who are actually looking. Most literary agents are not looking to add writers. My agent, for example, my New York agent, not my Hollywood agent, is Dominic Gable. He's a longtime agent, and he has told me, because people have asked me for favors, obviously, and said, could you, he said, look, he's got about 30 or so clients, and he said, I can't possibly add another writer, no matter how talented that writer is. I am completely spread, full-time servicing the writers I have. Do you want me to spend less time on you? And my answer is, no, I do not want that. You come to New York, I take you to dinner, and do you want me to not do, I'm going to be in New York next month, we're meeting, do you want me to not? No, of course I don't. So most agents are, they're not looking, but for those who are willing, and some of the young ones, and so they will meet, they will listen to pitches, that's where they are. So, but in addition to that, there's also things like writers who will give master classes and various things, and I give a master class there, which are often attended by other writers, including best-selling authors, because everybody can learn. And I sit and learn, and there's nobody who can't learn. If you think you can't learn, you're an idiot. And one of the things I give a master class is what makes a great thriller truly great. In other words, there's lots of good stuff out there, but then there's great stuff that elevates itself above and beyond. And one of the things that elevates something above and beyond, what are some of the characteristics? And one of them is a character that just, for example, and an example I gave there was imagine a novel that is written in a language so obscure that the entire world, 10 million people speak it. Out of 7 billion people in the world. That begins with a kind of a dull legal libel case that is really kind of boring and kind of meanders along. And really, and the troubles of a journalist that is sort of hired to look into an old case, and really is kind of going nowhere, and is given the title Men Who Hate Women. Really catchy. Really, really super catchy. I'd jump at buying that one. God, I can't imagine not wanting to read that one. And I'm talking about The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. That book became one of the biggest selling books in the world, and the question is why? Well, because of one single reason. And I could say it in 2 words. Elizabeth Salander. She is a character who appears about, I don't know, 75, 100 pages into the book. But the moment she appears, that book explodes. She is a character who is so, a kind of girl woman who lives in the no man's land, a very dangerous sexual world of between mystery and death, between male and female, and she is on her own terms, and she just rivets us. And that's why that book was successful, and they changed the title from some editor, after the author's death, changed the title to The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. And of course it got translated and got discovered. And the rest, as they say, is history. So, character. So it's not just so we're going to talk a little about what are the basics of character, but also what makes a character riveting, and if you're lucky as a writer, and sometimes we get lucky and sometimes we don't. But if we're lucky as a writer, a character will come along in our story that just suddenly comes alive. And says, no, you have to talk about me. I've had that happen to me a couple of times. For example, there's a Russian gangster in this book, and I don't know where he came from. So I swear to God, I have no idea where he came from. He just jumped up and wham, he was there, full as life, started talking, and wham, I'm just riveted. He's just there. Fascinating character. It's like that sometimes. So how do we get that? And how do we, and when you introduce a character, how do you can make an entire book, you can make an entire movie, and how does that work? So we're going to talk a little about that. So first, the basics. What are the we're going back to ABCs. You can't learn to read and write without learning your ABCs. We're going to go back to ABCs, a little bit about basic character. Now, so what are the ABCs of character before we talk about getting to the riveting stuff? We'll do the boring stuff. So Robert McGee, who's the guru of storytelling, says the function of character is to bring to the story the qualities of characterization necessary to convincingly act out choices. In other words, if we have a story we want to tell, at the core of that story must be characters who can act in such a way as to make the choices necessary for the story to reveal itself. Remember, we don't tell stories. The story reveals itself through choices our characters make. Now, if we're talking about screenplays, let's look at a screenplay for a second. You're writing a screenplay. What do we know about a character? You're looking at a page on a screenplay. What do you get? You get adjectives, clothes, gender, age, size, race, physical appearance. For example, a writer on a page will write, Rachel is a beautiful, feisty, ambitious young woman. By the way, why do we always say beautiful, you know? I mean, really, why? I mean, it's like, you know, because there aren't enough good-looking women in Hollywood, right? You know, it's like this fiction, you know, it's because like, I don't know really why. It really kind of bothers me, actually. It's like a fixation we all have. Anyway, but that's on a screenplay page. Let's remember that. It tells us absolutely nothing about the character. It's simply a guide for a casting director who really doesn't give a shit, except that it's female.
Right.
The audience never sees that. Let's remember that. So no matter what we say about a character in that descriptive line, at the first instant, what does the audience know about that character except the external? And the answer is 0. Nothing. All they know is what the actor they see. So basics. Unlike fiction, unlike a book, where you can reveal a character's thoughts. So you can start a book simply with a character's thoughts. Or a character is talking. I'm writing something right now, you know. You know, and I'm starting with a character saying, you think you know people? Trust me, you don't. And he's just talking, okay? You don't know anything about it. He's just nothing but on a screen, nothing internal ever shows. Nothing. Everything is external. Therefore, everything internal has to be revealed through what is external. Thus, the basics are, number one, for a screenplay, action is character. Action is character. That is, you define character through action, only through what he or she says or doesn't say or do. Period. So how do you define your character? Who is he or she? The first question we need to ask is, what is that character's need? What does he or she want? And why? And is it the same thing? The bottom line is, what does he or she want or need to attain? Robert McKee says, the value of that need is proportional to the risk required to attain it. The greater the risk, the greater the value. Thus, what are the obstacles the character must overcome to achieve his goal or satisfy his or her need? Again, the greater the obstacle, the greater the risk, the greater the value of that thing. So there's two things that we need to know. What's the character's backstory? And what event in the backstory, or the catalyst at the beginning of our story, is driving his or her need? Now, in order to get backstory, Sid Field, who defined the basic, is one of the people who define screenwriting. Talks about the 3 P's of character. First P being professional, you know, what does the character do for his work or for a living? The second P being personal, you know, their marital or social relationships and so on, you know, kids, whatever. And P, private, what does the character do when the character is alone? Do they have a fantasy world? Do they masturbate? Do they play chess? What do they do? Also, character is a point of view. Is the character a political activist? Is the character religious? Is the character a murderer? Is the character someone on the run? Character has a framework or setting. Define what's happening. In Neil Simon's The Goodbye Girl, for example, Richard Dreyfuss is an actor who sublets an apartment from a friend and wants to get into the apartment on a rainy night to find it already occupied by the friend's former girlfriend, Marcia Mason, and her daughter. Marcia wants to keep this stranger out. So attitude, his attitude is he wants in to the apartment on a rainy night. Her attitude is she wants him out of the apartment on the rainy night. Each believes they're in the right, and the conflict, and remember, conflict is the essence of drama, is the basis of their relationship, which is already built in. Okay? So attitude then defines their characters right from the very beginning. Character is personality and behavior. Now here's an example Sid Field uses as an example. A well-dressed man steps out of a Rolls Royce. He locks it. He spots a dime in the gutter. Looks around to see if anybody's looking. Bends down, picks up the dime, puts it in his pocket. What does that tell you about this man's character? We have just defined an awful lot about this guy in about 3 seconds. So, back to Robert McKee. True character is revealed in the choice a human being makes under pressure. The greater the pressure, the deeper the revelation. The deeper the revelation, the truer the choice to the character's essential nature. And I would refine that even further to the character's existential nature. How the person chooses to act under pressure is who he is. So here's the thing, and this is why we go to movies, and this is why we listen to stories, and this is why we watch TV. Because if we watch something that's really, really good, if we watch and on the waterfront and we see a character under enormous pressure to the point where they have to make an existential choice, then that pressure will, and in making an exit choice, will reveal who they are. And in that revelation, we can discover who we are.
Yes.
And that is what story is about.
Thank you.
And that is what writing is about. Okay. Now, what makes a character either sympathetic or interesting or compelling? And how can we introduce the character in such a way as to immediately convey through externals? Because remember, in screenwriting, we can only work with externals, unlike what I do here in prose, where I can work with internals and externals. In screenwriting, I can only, or television writing, I can only work with externals and dialogue. So how can I make this character convey through externals all these factors while at the same time make that character instantly compelling to watch? Robert McKee says, look for the through line in the character's life. I go further than Robert McKee. I say look for the single revealing characteristic, the one that defines the character's life's journey and quest. For example, I want you to think about John Wayne in John Ford's classic, The Searchers. Think about Ethan in that movie. Now, I mean, it is a stunning, stunning portrait of a character. This is a character that comes back to the frontier from the Civil War, discovers that his niece has been captured by Comanche Indians, and goes on a quest to go and rescue her from the Comanches, a quest that will turn into a years-long quest. Now, mind you, as we learn very quickly, now remember, he fought for the Confederacy. He has no problem with slavery. He doesn't think of blacks as particularly human. And he lets us know right from the get-go, he doesn't think of Indians as particularly human either. In fact, he thinks probably the only good Indian's a dead Indian. And he doesn't mind that at all. And he's going to do things his way. And if you don't like it, you better get the hell out of his way. And that's the John Wayne we've come to know. And he creates an American archetype. Keep that in mind. That's his through line. So by the end of the movie, because as he goes through, he begins to realize that she's been kept so long as an Indian slave that she's probably been raped. She's probably born Indian children. She's probably as much an Indian as she is a white girl. Now, we're not sure when we know inevitably he's going to find her, whether he's going to save her or kill her. That's his through line. Compelling character. We may not like him, but we'll watch him all right. We want to know what the hell's going to happen. Now, some examples. Let's consider some examples of characters who the instant they come on a screen, we watch them. Their external behavior reveals instantly what the through line, what their defining characteristics are, their quest, and who they are is. And because their external behavior reveals their internal quest. Their one single internal characteristic is revealed through their external behavior immediately. We have to watch them and no one else on the screen. They are that compelling. So I'm going to give you a few examples and you will see exactly what I mean. So the first example I'm going to give is the character of Quint in Jaws. Now, the screenplay by Peter Benchley and Carl Gottlieb. Now, we first see Quint, who's played by Robert Shaw in the movie Jaws, in a town meeting, and they're all meeting about this great white shark. And everybody's talking, and they're all worried about the shark, and nobody knows what to do, and everybody's talking at the same time, and Roy Scheider's standing in the middle. He's lost control of this meeting. He's the sheriff, and nobody knows what to do. And Quint is sitting there, and he scratches his fingernails on the blackboard. Excruciating sound. And this excruciating, annoying sound silences everyone. And he just sits there. And when everybody's quiet, he says, "You all know me. You all know what I do. I'll catch this bird for you. It won't be easy. Bad fish. I won't do it for $3,000, chief." And he goes on, and he finally finishes up with, "For $10,000, you get the head, the tail, the whole damn thing." He gets up and walks out. What does this tell us about Quint?
He's extremely competitive.
What else does this tell us about Quint?
Courageous.
Courageous. What else?
Tough.
Start from the screeching fingernails. Why the screeching fingernails? What does this tell us about it? Confident, courageous. What else?
Ice in his blood.
Blood?
His ice in his blood.
Ice.
Sadistic.
Narcissistic. He demands attention.
Huh? Sorry?
He demands attention.
Man's attention. Yeah.
Symbolic, the jaws or the fingers
Uh-huh.
scraping, key against that element.
Uh-huh. He gets up and walks out. He doesn't even wait for their reply.
I think it tells you he doesn't give a shit about anybody else.
This is a man who plays by his own rules. Now, when we go into the backstory, which we learn later, in a later scene, we learn that we learn about what happened, that Clint was a sailor on the Indianapolis. An infamous incident during World War II where sailors were in the waters for many days, that they were attacked by numerous shark attacks. Many were killed. And this is a man who, not just because of that, but certainly because of that issue, doesn't give a damn what anybody else thinks. He plays by his own rules. From the second he puts those fingernails on the shark, he doesn't care what you think. He doesn't care what anyone thinks. He will do this by his rules. If you want to play with him, if you want to do business with him, you will do it his way or not at all, sir. So there it is. You want or not. He knows, he thinks he knows what he's doing, and there it is. He's gonna do it his way or not at all. This is a man who exactly like John Wayne in The Searchers, will do things his way, and you and the rest of the world be damned. And this is a character we will watch. Because that's an interesting character. That's a character. Because, first of all, he's on a quest. He's on a quest, because any character like that is on a quest. And secondly, what made him that way is something we should know. We need to understand that. Now, a second character who will immediately grab us so violently that we cannot take our eyes off. And this one you all know. And this one we get well prepped for even before we see him. But even so, even though we're prepped for him, even though this is a character that we are prepped for, nothing can prepare us for him. He will, even so, he will grab us in a way that we can't even understand. That's how good the writing is. Okay? Because this is writing, ladies and gentlemen. This is writing. Okay? And the character is Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs, screenplay by Ted Talley. Now, in Silence of the Lambs, we're set up before we ever meet Lecter, first by having Agent Clarice Starling, played by Jodie Foster. Her FBI boss, Jack Crawford, cautions her not to reveal anything inside your head.
Nobody does.
Really? Then, so she goes to the asylum for the criminally insane, and she meets this kind of creepy Chilton. Before she's allowed to see Lecter, Chilton, the director for the Institute, warns her again about how dangerous he is by showing her a picture of a photo of what he did to a nurse, even though he was bound, and cautions her not to get close. Now notice how cleverly the screenplay is. He shows her a picture and we see her reaction, but he doesn't show us the picture. Twice as scary. Twice as scary this is good writing and good directing. By not showing us the picture, it's scarier. Okay? So we are already set up that this is a bad dude. But having set us up that this is a bad dude, we could be very easily disappointed. We could be very easily led to believe what, this is what I'm supposed to be worried about? But that's not what happens, is it?
No.
And here's why. Here's why. Okay. So we're already kind of scared of him before we see him. So how do we see? So he goes down this kind of disgusting sort of hallway. These people in these cells with these glass windows, kind of dark. We first see Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter standing behind glass, and he's absolutely in the middle of his cell, and his hands are at his side, which is really weird. He's in the middle of his cell, and he's facing the glass as if he's expecting her. And then the following dialogue ensues. He sees her, and he says, "Good morning. You're one of Jack Crawford's, aren't you?" And she says, "Good morning, doctor," and shows him her badge. Now remember, she's been warned, don't get too close to him. He says, "Closer, please." She takes a small step closer to the glass. He says, "Closer." Now, everything inside us is saying, "Don't do it, girl." What does this tell us about Hannibal Lecter? Everybody, what does this tell us?
He can control you.
What controls the right word? What?
He is a Svengali. He can bring you into his lair.
What does he want? He demands control, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
It's almost sexual with him, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah, I don't see that.
I believe that is true.
Sexual? I think
Certainly he requires control of the situation. He must control a situation.
Well, if she comes in and he knows that she wants something from him, so he's trying to say, "I'll give it to you, but you've got to come closer." And I think it's a mind game. She wants to talk to him, and he just keeps saying, every time, close, close,
Right. So we know there's a mind game going on.
yeah.
From the instant they meet, he's already playing a mind game. The mind game is about control. And who's winning?
The guy who laughs out.
From the instant we meet him, we've already been warned about him. We've already been told, don't let Hannibal Lecter get inside your head. We've already been, we haven't been with him 2 seconds, and we've been told this is a mind game. The mind game's about control, and he's winning.
The problem is every time you want something from somebody, you give them control.
And-
And that's that's the theme or the whole, and she has to figure out a way to get what she wants without being completely dominated by it.
And so, what we now enter into, so what we've got is a character, Hannibal Lecter, that we immediately find fascinating, because now we're in this incredible game with him. Because we as the audience, through Clarice Starling, because she's now our protagonist, because if we weren't before, because we're kind of following her as this kind of scared young FBI, but now, we sure are now. If we weren't hooked before, by God, we are now, because we're with her. Because it's not just Clarice that's in this mind game. It's now us, the audience, who's now locked in this mind game with Hannibal Lecter. And wow, this is compelling. This character is compelling. He's not a good guy. We know he's dangerous. We know he's scary. But boy, is he interesting.
Andrew, may I add, as an actor, he is so brilliant. Anthony Hopkins is brilliant. The counterpoint, he is so subtle. His nuances are very, 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 very selective. And he plays counterpoint, which playing against the drama, the allegorical line that takes place during this threatening, this scene of control. As an actor, he brings, and the director brought in counterpoint. We call reverse polarity. Play against the middle. Play against the inevitable. So he does it with a slight bit of a smile, with just a little bit of a ripple, and everything is in his eyes. And the depth of what he's doing, so subtly, is then transcended into the evil part of the most part of his body. He's wonderful. He's a wonderful actor. He's one of the greatest actors in the world today. There's no question about it.
Absolutely,
That's
and
powerful.
that point, by the way, is also, when you're creating a character, and you're talking about counterpoint, very often you might create a character, you say, okay, this is a bad guy, this is gonna be a good guy or something. Don't say, okay, I'm gonna give him this characteristic because he's a good guy, so do the opposite. Play the opposite. If he's a bad guy, give him something interesting or good to play with. Make him, really good at playing the saxophone, jazz saxophone, and Coltrane or something. Make it play off of the expectation of bad. Work exactly opposite.
Andrew, I have a question.
Yeah.
For me, watching that movie, sibling is very important to me in my life. And I always thought that part of my value for him was that I thought he was going to lead this young, she was just new in the agency. And so I thought, well, I think they're both playing a game, but I also felt like that he was going to help her. So I thought he really
You
knew.
really thought he
And he
was
was
gonna
going to help her solve the problem. What did you say? I didn't hear you.
That how, you really thought he was going to help?
I thought that he was going to help her. Why she wasn't there to socialize or have tea. She was there to solve a crime, and time was of the essence.
Yeah.
And for me, I thought, you know what? He'll help her. And they had a relationship that went beyond the movie to me, beyond what she wanted.
Well, in a way
and what
he did.
wanted.
In a way, he gave her a clue that when
Yeah.
she figured it out, led to her finding the
Yes.
real killer. That is in fact true.
Yeah.
That did exactly happen.
But in that-
All right, we're gonna do one more example. And this example is Pat in Silver Linings Playbook, screenplay by David O. Russell. Now, right from the fade-in, the beginning of the movie, we see Pat, played by Bradley Cooper, and he's in his room in the psychiatric facility. He's standing with his back to the camera, and he's rehearsing a conversation with his wife, Nikki, who isn't there. Of course, he's simply rehearsing what he might be saying to her, and basically telling her he's better now, and that he hopes that she's better too. There's a sign on the wall that says Excelsior. And so he's rehearsing this conversation, and an orderly comes in and tells him the doc's waiting. He goes down the hall to a nurse station where he takes his pill. He fakes swallowing the
Oh, my
pill.
favorite.
And he, and swallows water, and then he shows the nurse that his mouth appears to be empty. But when he gets a chance, he spits the pill out and throws it away. And he goes into a room, joins a group therapy session, where he appears very cooperative and positive. But then his mother checks him out of the facility, but it's against the doctor's advice when she checks him out. And she's not sure that's right. What does this tell us about Pat? Okay. So this is how we meet Pat. What does this tell us about him?
Sneaky guy.
Hmm?
Very sneaky.
Sneaky. Okay.
Clever, I would say clever.
Clever.
He will figure out how to beat the system.
Determined. Remember, we're looking for one thing. Remember, the secret.
Control.
Let's go back to what the object of this exercise is. We are looking for one single defining characteristic that will pull this character through his quest to find him in such a way that it is driving him through his quest. What is it that he has got to do this? What is it? What's he doing? Why is he doing all this? What is this about? What is he about? What is this? What are these actions showing us? Remember, this is all external stuff. This is external stuff in order to tell us something about him inside him. What is it? That's why it's written this way.
It's rage against authority.
Huh?
Rage against authority.
Rage against authority?
Yeah. Being that he doesn't take the pill because he knows the pill will make him better. And he knows better than that.
No,
Yes.
he wants to be in control.
He wants to be in control.
He wants to be in control.
He's gonna stop at nothing for love.
He's going to stop at nothing for love. Okay, you're on a track there.
Yeah.
The need for love.
He needs love.
Need.
Yeah, it's a,
That's why he's rehearsing.
He's rehearsing for love. Yeah, you're on a track.
Believes he's in the right.
He believes he's in the right. You're on a track.
And he believes she still loves him.
She believes she still loves him. Yes.
For what he is, not what the pills make him.
He doesn't like the way the pills make him. Yes, you're absolutely right.
He's making a game.
And so if he's on a track and he doesn't like what the pills make him, so then the psychiatric facility and the doctors are obstacles. Correct? And what
He knows
and what does
better.
our protagonist need to do with obstacles?
Overcome.
Overcome them, correct?
He knows better.
He knows better, and he knows better because
He knows he's right.
he knows
he's right.
he feels he's right because he's on his quest
Get her
for
back. Love.
love.
love. Yeah. Yeah. Because Pat is someone who has a desperate need to reclaim himself. If you're in a psychiatric facility, you know, we later learn in the backstory, it's because he tried to commit suicide. That's why he's there. Okay, people that just don't wind up in he tried to commit suicide. And with Pat, he is trying to reclaim not just himself, but the love he desperately feels and feels that he had with his wife. He wants to not just reclaim, but gain what he imagines this thing, this excelsior, this ideal that of love and this thing with his wife might be this romantic sort of ideal. Pat is a dreamer.
An unreachable goal.
Pat is a dreamer. Pat is all of us.
Cervantes,
Okay, Pat is all of us. Pat's a dreamer. And we're all dreamers. And Pat is dreaming of this ideal. And it all crashed. And he's trying to reclaim it.
Caught up in the conflict of
And-
trying to reclaim it.
And he feels he's made enough progress. He feels he's made enough progress in his therapy or whatever, that it's time for him to go and get it. And this other stuff, this system is in the way.
And there's something in that you, I think, intrinsically see watching it, that you know it may not be the right thing, and you know he probably is not going to get what he's after because this dissolved for a reason, and he is a character such that tried to kill himself for a reason. So you know, based upon that, this is probably not going to work out well. But you relate it to yourself because you can identify with the courage of somebody to negate all that and just go for it in spite of everything, to just run after it. And you want that to be yourself.
Exactly. We know because the doctors are advising against it. We know because he's spitting out the pill. We know because he's lying we already know because he's lying in the group 37. We know because of all this stuff that Pat can't possibly succeed in this effort, in this go-around. We know that Pat's current effort, as it is doomed to fail. We know that in the first couple of seconds of the movie. We already know that with this character, but we're going to follow him. We're compelled. And that's what I'm talking about. We are absolutely riveted and compelled to follow him. Why? Because he's got us hooked.
Yeah.
Right. This guy's got, we want to see where this goes. By God, he's got a dream. He's on a quest.
And how much do we torture him after he gets out?
And we want to see where this goes because we don't care. We know the odds are impossible. Our odds are impossible. Our odds are impossible.
But we want to see somebody go after those impossible odds in spite of
Because we're all dreamers.
Yeah, we want to
Right.
We are all dreamers. Every last one of us. That's
And
who
there's no
we
consequences
humans
for
are.
us.
Yeah.
They do all the dirty work,
Yeah.
and we can just absorb it because we walk out clean.
And that's how you create characters that rivet. You define that single characteristic, and in a screenplay, you show it externally through the action by defining that one single characteristic and showing us that, just that, hone in on that one riveting character. Now, when Quint runs his fingernail, it's not because he's obnoxious. I mean, he may be obnoxious, that's a separate issue. But that's not because he does that because that's part of who he is. Because he doesn't care about you or me. Because we've already defined his character as somebody who doesn't care about other people. We've already defined him as somebody who doesn't give a damn. And when Hannibal Lecter says, "Come closer," Hannibal Lecter is gaining control because that's who he is. And that mesmerizes us.
I don't even want to see him on the street anymore.
But there's one, that was to back up, to further illustrate that point, the very first scene in one of the best screenplays I've read, which was also translated into a wonderful film, Whiplash. And what you just said in the very first scene, and J.K. Simmons comes upon this wannabe drummer who's in there. Oh wow, play something. But it's so revealing of his character when he just